On this episode of the Average Tabletop Gamers, we're going to be doing an unboxing of Season 1 of the Warhammer Underworld's Shadespire. Welcome back to the Average Tabletop Gamers. I'm Ian.
I'm Lee.
And we're going to be unboxing Warhammer Underworld's Shadespire, the Season 1 of this game, which we'll come on to in a second. So let's just dive straight in and we can talk a bit about it as we go. So Shadespire, straight off, a fast-paced game of tactical arena combat.
Yes.
And strangely, for a Games Workshop product, not immediately faced with miniatures. We've got some, the actual game boards there.
Yeah, basically. Do you want me to open this?
Yeah, if you dive into that. I think that finding the board there I don't want to call it a mishmash of a game, because it's absolutely not, but there's kind of quite a lot of genres in there, and I think Games Workshop have been quite clever. It's a bit of a board game, rather than the full large-scale army games of Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40k. As you'll see there, with what Lee's just unboxing, you've got a number of smaller map tiles that go together. There's a couple of them. And the whole game is played out on these map tiles. And you've got maybe, two A3 size map tiles, maybe?
Yeah. For the context of the game, that's actually quite large.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And they're both, we'll give you a bit of a view there. So both boards come with that side, and what they've been doing with their boards, I'll let you hold that one in.
Setting them up double-sided.
It's double-sided, which of course means you've got lots of combination.
And when you set up your board, you can set it up offset. But we'll maybe talk about that in a bit more detail in a Get Playing video.
These were also in that little packet there.
So loads of lovely tokens, as you come to expect. Some good quality card stock. You've also got some hexes for, if you maybe will put one on the close up. We've got some hexes that go on the board which represent different objectives that you can capture during the game. And that's kind of the one of the core themes of the game is move around the board, earn points for your team, capture objectives. And it is that simple, actually, when it comes down to it. I mean, it's quite a quick-paced game.
It is. I think, for me, the penny drop moment for how this game is to be played is when you realise the relevance of the cards and the tokens and the game board, whereas in a traditional war game, it's all about the miniatures moving around and engaging with each other. This game, it's a whole dynamic to itself. It's one thing together.
And I think that's, and the miniatures, let's not get away from it. The miniatures for this game are beautiful. And I've just taken the rule book off there. I can see them, so we'll get into them in a second. But, and you hate it when I say this, but the miniatures for this are almost tokens. They're beautiful tokens, but the real key and core to this game, which you kind of just touched on there, is the cards. Yeah. You build a deck, and it is that deck. It's very much in that living card game. I want to say the games like Netrunner, like the Warhammer card game that they did. So you don't buy the packs and you get random things inside it. You always get the same cards, but you can then build your deck from those cards.
It gives some variation there, because I think if you look at a lot of skirmish games and a lot of variations, just using Games Workshop for example, somebody has a heavy bolter with another heavy bolter and another heavy bolter, and they've got lots of firepower. Yeah. Whereas with this, you have the same three miniatures in an actual gang, or a war band as they're referred to, but how you play them and what cards you deploy changes the tactics and the flow of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what gives this game a lot of its longevity, is as you, in addition to the core game, as you'd expect, the individual gangs or war parties have their own little boxes, and they come with different cards. And very cleverly by Games Workshop, in addition to the gang-specific cards, you also get universal cards. Yes. So when someone like me goes looking for the most optimum build on the internet, you find the websites that show, okay, the most optimum build needs you to have almost a card from every single set that's out there, like Magic the Gathering, basically.
I think and that's great because the draw's there for all kinds of player. You've got the person who wants to win at any cost, and you've got me who likes to collect little miniatures. So that's the reason.
Speaking of
which, yeah.
So here are the lovely, and these miniatures are beautiful. I mean, even down to the molded bases.
They're particularly nice. I mean, the thing for me as well, would this persuade you to pick up a brush?
No. Because they're coloured blue and the other team are coloured red. So,
yes,
you know.
Yes. Or to pick up a brush and hand it to your friend, possibly.
I'm sure they can. I'll be too busy looking through cards.
Yeah, exactly.
This one and this one go together. But
I'll pop this one underneath there because these are the Stormcast. I think within this particular season, there's 2 versions of the Stormcast. I think there's some coming down the line.
Yep.
But these are fantastic. I'll just leave that there to let it focus up. They are typical of Games Workshop lately, which we've discussed in a few of the videos about the push fit miniatures. They're accessible to someone who literally wants to pull them, snip them from the thing, push them together, and like yourself is quite happy to put them on the table.
Yep. And there's the Garrick's Reavers, the Khorne Warband.
So you've very much got from the offset goodies and baddies.
Absolutely. And they are, for someone who likes painting like yourself, these must be a joke because they're just so detailed. There's so much on them. And
I think the thing is, when you get a miniature like that, you put it together, it just gives so much inspiration. You sort of look at it and you see what everybody else is doing and you think to yourself, right, I want to try this. And there's a lot of, I wish we haven't touched on the rulebook yet, but there's lots of stuff in there that will actually sort of like inspire you to how you want to paint stuff. You know, even the dynamic poses that the Khorne gang has, the Khorne warband, is literally what you'd expect from a Khorne warband. They're all literally almost throwing an axe, throwing themselves, or throwing both at the target at speed. You know,
and I think another part of the joy of the game that gives you some of the differences is it's not just the different models. So the warband you get in there, you've got 3 of the
Stormcast.
The Stormcast. I keep wanting to say Sigmarines. The Stormcast. they have their own name.
Yes.
And they are a heavily armoured, heavy hitting group who get better by being defensive.
Yeah.
And that you start off with your character, each miniature in a basic state, and they've got their stat card. And then every different warband has a different activator, and if you meet those conditions, you flip it to their heroic state, basically, and they get better.
Which brings us back to the tactics again. The game itself isn't about, in a Ludo, Monopoly, tick, 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 and I'm there. It's that I need to get there, but at the same time, I need to make sure that I can get there, and I take as many people out as possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about, in a traditional war game, of, you know, your straight up fight. It is a set of objectives. And I mean, these guys get better the more. But I think the phrase they use is when a player's taken off the board or a piece is taken off the board, they increase. Again, these defensive. These are all about killing.
Yeah, essentially, I think it's something like you have 5 of them versus the 3, but their leader becomes a killing machine. Mm-hmm. Your goal is basically to get all his people killed as quickly as possible.
They actually get better if 3 of their own warband die.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like... It's good.
But I'll leave the rulebook there, we'll come on to that afterwards, but just loads, as mentioned, loads of different cards in here. Mm-hmm. You've got different types of cards. You've got... might as well just dive into these. You've got...
Just while we're talking about... We're going to talk about the different card sets, how what they've done is they've given you 2 pre-done... So I'll put them side by side before we open them. So in the box, you get a pre-done deck. Okay, a lot of other card type games do that sort of thing, but this is, you're brand new to the game. Just use these, and it actually says that straight on the front of the cards.
And that's a really fair point. I'm glad you do that. And that's the extra cards, which actually states don't use these until you've played a couple of times.
Exactly. And
I was just about to get torn straight into them.
Well, that's because that's what you do, Ian. I mean, the thing is, this is where this game ticks all the boxes. You see, you can accessible, I'm making up words now. You can access the game at an early level, build your miniatures, play and learn with the pre-done cards, and then you can do all the strategizing that Ian likes to do, where he'll look at extra cards, decide what needs to go, what needs to stay, what needs to be not given to your opponent, if you're sharing cards, that is, and how to get the benefit of the game. And I mean, that's a fantastic. And as we were saying before, as you progress and buy more of the actual things for this, you'll gain more cards, and those will just balance your deck out to how you want to play. Not necessarily to win, because obviously there are people out there who do play competitively on a tournament scene, and that's great. But there's people who basically want that little card, so they've got that, the way they like to play, their play style. So
there's an example of Garrick Gorebeard. He's the leader of the Blood Reavers.
Yeah.
And if you show him, that's his normal starting state. And then when 3 of his warband go out of action, he flips.
Is it not all of the cards flip?
It is. It's all... for his warband, it is.
Right, his warband,
so
that's right.
At any time at least 3 fighters are out of action, you flip them.
Yeah.
And they stay flipped. They stay in their better state. So the goal is to meet that kind of objective. So that's one of the types of cards you get in here is the character cards.
Yeah, so I'll just put that there.
They represent your warband. You'll have them laid out in front of you. You then have...
Sorry, they've got a lovely... I'll put them in front of the thing. They've got a lovely little picture of the miniature you're supposed to play with them, just so you can identify stuff, whether it's painted or not.
In addition to that, you get the objective cards. This is one of the ways you can score points in the game.
That's the key way to win, isn't it? It's all about getting these little gold things to the bottom, isn't it?
You get your objective points. You get that by killing people, you get it by capturing objectives, and you get it by completing the goals in these cards. And in addition to that, you have a deck of things that help you. So they can be equipment or special abilities that attach onto characters, and effectively, I can't remember what the game calls them, but effectively interrupts. So spells, abilities, one-off things that you can do, and then the card's gone. So equipment attaches, stays with the miniature, and the interrupts sort of are one-offs. And that's where kind of the deck building comes into it. It's getting the right number of objectives, it's getting the right number of equipment pieces, it's getting the right number of interrupts, having them all synergized so they all work together. It's a limited number. I think it's a 20 card. No, it's 12 objectives and I think 20 of the other bits and pieces.
Yeah, I think there are some set rules. I mean, potentially again, Warhammer, which has had a reboot obviously in the last couple of years, which has changed to all these lovely new characters and things like that. The Warhammer universe, or rather the Warhammer game, has had lots of card interaction over the years, where it's a war game with lots of armies and magical spells and things like that. But I think this has to be, and this is the bit that kind of got me for a little while, the cards are just as important as the figures and their position on the board. And I think I've already said that once today. And it's kind of...
Some would say more important.
Yes.
I would say more important.
It is. We don't want to say it's a card game with tokens, because a little bit of me dies inside when you say that, Ian. But it is actually a game where you're moving around the board. It's almost like a dungeon crawl adventure type game where you are moving around and interacting with something. And of course, the cards have a massive part of the game. And how you deploy them.
Exactly. And I started off saying it was a bit of a board game. And I don't want to over egg it, but it's more of a chess than it is a Ludo.
Yes.
Because you are quite tactically trying to move your miniatures around the board in reaction to what your opponent's doing, and trying to execute the plan that you have on your cards.
There's a little bit of Blood Bowl thinking in there, and for those of you who've played Blood Bowl, obviously, you know, it's like any sort of tactical game. You position your piece to block, to manoeuvre, to prevent something from happening on the opposite team. And this is the same. If you're trying to stop somebody from getting to an objective as a Storm Card Eternal, you basically put that figure in a position that will make it difficult for one of the core warband to get there.
Exactly. Or
they have to actually take you out of the game.
And as with all games, it's got miniatures, it's got cards, but it's also got dice. You have to have the dice. I can rip them. I don't need a knife for dice.
These ones make a lot of sense to me, actually.
Yeah, they work, don't they? I mean, there's white one is an offensive dice, black one is a defensive dice. No traditional D6s in this, no numbered D6s. It's all the special ones. So there we go. And the different symbols really just represent a different kind of character. So hammers tend to be big, physical, beat your opponent type figures. So there's 1 in 3 chance it's a hammer. You've got swords, which are if you're a smaller, more nimble, stabby character, but you've only got a 1 in 6 chance of hitting. You've got 1 critical hit on there, which does double damage, always worth it. And then you've got a couple of symbols that...
all about positioning in the miniature.
Well, they only count if... one of them only counts if you outnumber the miniature 2 to 1, and one of them only counts if you outnumber the miniature 3 to 1. So you have kind of an assist rule in there where you can... smaller gangs can gang up on the bigger miniature. Sorry, bigger gangs can gang up on the smaller ones to get those advantages.
Because some of the gangs have got a lot more characters in them. I think, obviously, we'll maybe touch on them at another point. But, for example, the Chaos Warband comes with... 5 miniatures. The Stormcast Eternals, same sprue size, same bits of components. However, there's only 3 figures in there, and that's because they're massive. And obviously, I think the Sepulchre Guard, I managed to say that right for the first time ever, they come with 7 characters in their warband because they're skeletons.
Yeah.
So,
yes. And they have, in Season 2, which we'll touch on in a second, they have just released the Night Goblins, who are a 9 miniature warband.
Yeah. And see, the idea of the whole collect and play bit for me is fantastic, because it is something where you can access this game with 1 warband. In fact, you don't even need to own the game. You could own a warband and play with somebody who owns the game. But you can also spend time collecting as many gangs as you want during that season.
And the miniatures, we've joked about them. I've joked about them as being tokens. They're beautiful. Every warband looks great. He's not with us at the moment, but we'll channel Gary for a moment. 5 little plastic bags there, Games Workshop. Every box set, there's got to be something different.
Well, there's new plastic technologies coming out all the time. I mean. Lego, for example, have just put out some. They're looking at I read an article. They're doing lots of different plastics and styrenes based on plants, and they've obviously released a box of plants, Lego brick plants made out of starch. So, and they're indistinguishable. You're a big fan of Lego as well, you know.
Certainly
that, yeah. I picked up a set when I bought something from the shop, and they really are like a test piece to see if you could tell the difference, and you can't. They're the soft plastic. So there are some options out there, not just for figures. I think that's potentially, again, Challen and Gary, that's the way that I think these things are going to go. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more plant-based or alternatives to petroleum. What that'll do to production costs, I don't know, but make us sleep a little bit better at night. Well, I will anyway.
I'm largely indifferent about it.
Yes.
So I've kind of torn it. The final thing we've got there, which is the rule books and as it's become obligatory with their games, I think good. A quick start sheet. Quick start sheet.
It's because I said starch
before,
it
wasn't it? Yes. Which actually that 2-sider is all you need to start playing a game. It genuinely is that simple. You can with the decks that it said are already pre-built for you. You can pop the miniatures together, push fit miniatures, and that sheet's all you really need.
It runs you through the logic of the game. It says, this is what this is, this is what this is. Off you go and play on your own now.
Yeah.
Let's pop that there. 2 seconds.
The obligatory, here's how you put your miniatures together, and a fairly straightforward one, because they are all push fit miniatures.
This is something, again, in the last few games we've seen, Kill Team, Blood Bowl. This new way of doing it, as far as I'm concerned, is brilliant. It's just so clear to put the figures together. I'll just pop that as well. I'm giving the producer a lot of work to do today.
And finally, the rulebook. And to be honest, it's a thin rulebook. It's 32 pages.
To me, that doesn't put me off. That actually encourages me a lot more.
I think it's great. I think this is the joy of the game, in that, it's a 32-page rulebook, and the first 10 pages of that is background fluff on what Shadespire is, what the gangs are, the history, it's all Age of Sigmar, which is not a lore I know particularly at all.
That was another really big thing for me, because my Stormcasts, which you're probably going to see in a later video, whether I'm on it or not, I don't know, but in a later video, see my Stormcasts, they are not your typical silver.
Yep.
Silver and gold. I've done them because I wanted to represent some eternal warriors that for some reason don't seem to die in this Shadespire, and they go on and on and on. So I wanted this old patinaed,
I believe it's some sort of Nagash curse, if that's
exactly,
the background.
So reading that first page just changed exactly how I came to paint the miniatures, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
And to be honest, there's not a lot. There's a lot more detail, but it is all essentially just the fundamentals of what's in that quick start guide. It just gives you all the extra little nuances and little bits and pieces, and how to build your own cards, and how to build your own decks, and just the extra bit of information to get the most out of the game. And then expanding onto, it is fundamentally a 2-player game, but if you buy or you have friends who also have the board game, you put multiple sets together and you can play larger multiplayer games.
This first season also saw another expansion board, which I've got in the house, which is another 2 boards with some rules and some new counters in for deadly terrain stuff, which because it brings, yet again, if you've, I mean, there'll be people who literally have 2 or 3 friends they'll play this with, and you'll play it and play it and play it and love it all the bits. And then just by having those 2 extra boards and those extra rules, you've just got a whole new game again.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for me. I think some games you can play and keep playing, but it's the same repetition. This mixes it up, and I think, as we're going to see in the next season as well,
I think that's a clever thing. They've gone the, I want to say the Wizards model almost, the Magic the Gathering of, here's season 1, here are the gangs that support season 1. Here's season 2. It's another essentially same core box, but different maps, 2 different gangs in it, and then you have another set of gangs supporting that. And it's a cool model. There's more cards there.
If it's done right as well, it means that if you have something from season 1, it will be just as relevant in season 2, and vice versa.
Absolutely, you know absolutely. I mean? And Games Workshop, they seem to know what they're doing at the moment with these kind of games. So this game for me, it's cracking. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. I've got the Skaven Gang. I guess it gets a huge thumbs up, and I'm sure we will be coming back to this and for a Get Playing, and maybe talking a bit more about card building and see some of the miniatures painted in future episodes. But until then, I think probably
let's put a line in it there.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe hit us up in the usual social media things. They'll be at the bottom there. And until the next episode, I've been Ian.
I've been Lee.
And we've been the Average Tabletop Gamers. We'll see you soon.
See you.